Cahn Anton, a very dear friend of mine. I'm so happy to have her here today. We're going to make an amazing recipe, which are Italian-style meatballs, raw, vegan, and dehydrated. So we're going to go through the recipe with you. And I'm just so grateful that you are here. I actually have to say, I admire Abby so much, and I met her years ago. She was doing a raw foods demo, actually this amazing seaweed soup, but it was called
Creamy Sea of Green Soup.
Creamy Sea of Green Soup. It rocked my world. And this was sort of around the time when I was just kind of getting more into raw foods. And I was just telling Abby, I didn't really know at the time that you can actually put seaweed in soup that, apart from, you know, the regular miso soup that you would get. I would just sprinkle it over salads, and then from then on I just, in place of salt, would add kombu or dulse and make even like a raw Caesar, you know, dressing with that seaweed. So it was an amazing experience to see her. I was just in awe. And I can't believe she's in my house, which is amazing.
Thank you.
But I would love for them to get to know you and just maybe say a little bit about what you do and what your life is like.
Okay. Well, I've been raw for over 15 years now. We're actually getting close to 16, which is hard to believe. And about 10, 11 of those years have been completely raw, you know, other than like maybe like 0.5% here and there. So I was vegan before I went raw. I was vegetarian before I went vegan. It's been a long journey, and I found that eating raw is just such a high vibration, and I feel so good. I have so much energy, and I don't get sick, you know, this, that, and the other thing, other than, you know, occasional detox, which is rare nowadays unless I'm intentionally going through some kind of detox cleanse of one sort or another. And it turns the clock back in so many different ways. I'm regularly told that I look much younger than I actually am.
You look amazing. Her skin, you can't see a close-up of her skin, but it's like a baby.
Aw, thank you. Thank you. So I love this lifestyle, and over the years people have come to me to say, you know, show me what you're doing, and slowly but surely it's organically turned into a more formal thing. And I love helping people feel really good. And one of my main focuses is to teach people how to sustain this kind of diet and lifestyle, how to demystify the whole thing, because for newbies especially, it's just like, wow, that must be so much work. How do you eat that way? And when people eat my food, they're like, wow, this tastes so good. So, you know, it's a learning curve like anything else, and my aim is to make the learning curve easy and to make the diet sustainable for people, and for it to taste good and to be nutritionally balanced. So that's a really key thing. A lot of people don't understand how to balance it nutritionally and how to fine-tune it for their particular body type, and also what your regular lifestyle is, you know, where, you know, how you work or whatever your regular routine is, how to fit this into your routine so that you can really do it in a way that's easy, doesn't feel like it's overburdening you, but actually makes your life easier because you feel so good. So this recipe that we're going to show you today was actually designed, I designed it based on the request of someone who came to one of my classes and said, you know, I'd love for my husband to eat this way, but he can't give up Italian meatballs. So I said, okay, I'll design an Italian meatball recipe for you that's raw, vegan, and tastes just like the real thing.
That's so cool.
And that's where this has come from.
And I think a lot of people probably feel like they're going to miss something when they give something up, but the truth is, you know, it's just the ingredients that change, but the flavor profiles are still the same, and it's literally just opting one thing out for another, but including everything else that kind of goes along with it. And getting really creative too, using a dehydrator if you have one, and plating it beautifully so that it's not only nourishing for the body, it's nourishing for the eyes. It becomes this beautiful bright colored experience with organic vegetables that, you know, it serves two purposes. It nourishes your taste buds and it also nourishes your body. And I think that's how you make things sustainable for people. Like if they think this is something that I have to do, go without for a little while to reach whatever they want to reach, their weight or their detox, and then they think, well, then I'm going to start eating everything, you know, the old way again.
Right.
The thing is, you have to make it just this beautiful creative process, and then you don't. There's nothing you're missing except the bad stuff. There's nothing.
And you're missing feeling crummy.
Yeah, yeah. Some people are. I mean, they don't know that they felt crummy until they feel good.
Right. Yeah, that was the experience I had, because in the beginning I transitioned slowly, and every once in a while I have this day when I eat something that was more like the old way, and I slowly but surely found which things I really could not eat anymore during my transition. And the days after I ate those things, I'd wake up in the morning with what I call the food hangover.
Yeah.
And pretty early on I realized, you know, I used to feel this way all the time, but I didn't know it because, I mean, I kind of did, but there was nothing to compare it to. That was my baseline all the time. And when I went raw, it was just like, at first there was this feeling like, you know, I'm not really full. But it's a different kind of fullness, and you get over that pretty quickly, and you realize that other kind of fullness is more like this dead weight, like a bowling ball in your stomach.
Right. It's a satisfaction. It's a satisfied feeling versus I've pushed my stomach to the limits and it's going to carry me through the next 6 hours. And it's, you know, I think it's abusive to the body to give it things that are not designed in nature for it. And Doritos, there's no Dorito tree. There's no, you know, Cheeto tree. There's no regular ice cream tree. I mean, it's just not, you know, those things, what we do to ourselves, I think, if we really sat down and think about it, including lack of sleep, unhealthy relationships, I think it all adds up. And this is a reminder that we can have the taste that we want, but have it in a way that is self-loving, that is, you know, that, and also for the people around you, your friends and your family. I think that's the best way to love them, is to give them really nourishing food. I mean, we're so ingrained with food and love. You know,
it's so true.
It's so great.
Yeah. And it's really fun when you've got this new recipe that you've worked out and it tastes really good, and then you're invited to some family party or something, or some friends, and you bring this thing along enough to share, and they're like, oh my God, this is so good. And they kind of get why you eat the way you do. Maybe they're not ready to do it, but you're no longer this pariah.
Right. And I think also too, it's not even necessary to say these are raw vegan.
Right.
It's just, these are, you know, plant-based meatballs, and they're really delicious, and you don't have to kind of say this whole spiel and sort of lecture to them why, you know, they just have to taste it. They just have to taste it. So Abby teaches classes, she coaches, and she also has a wonderful website, if you can tell us what that is.
Super simple, superfoods.com.
And we'll have that in a link below, including this recipe will go below, so you can check out all the ingredients. So she's brought two very beautiful products here today, and I wish there was like some way you can smell this. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about them.
Yeah. So one of the things I do, in addition to what Andrea just mentioned, is I have a small line of superfood products that I sell, a few supplements that you can get through my website. One of the main companies that I bring in products from is Sunfire Superfoods. They're a really cool, small company with very, very high vibration, pristine products. Some of them are single ingredients, and some of them are blends, superfood blends. So this one in particular, Fiesta Molé, is a wonderful dehydrated powdered tomato. It's a very beautiful tomato. It's completely ripe, peak ripeness. It's grown in a place in South America, I believe, if I remember correctly, where there's very little pollution. So it's really very nice. And then it also has some cacao powder, raw cacao powder. So tomato and cacao are very traditional south of the border combination. The cacao powder is fully fermented, so it doesn't give you that buzzy feeling that some of the raw cacao powders do. And then it's got a bunch of other really cool ingredients. It's got hemp seeds, which are of course high in the omegas and also high in protein. Maca, which is a wonderful root vegetable, also from South America. Ultra-tocotrienols, which is a rice bran that's enzymatically stripped of sugars and starches, and that's really great for vitamin E supplementation, but it's a food as opposed to like a little pill. And tocotrienols are currently considered the best form of vitamin E to take. It also tastes really good. Golden flax seeds, which are also a great source of omegas as well as fiber. Whole coconut flour, really nice. Sunfire salt, which I'm going to explain in a moment, and some spices as well, peppers, lilies, and herbs. So this tastes really nice. I use it pretty much every day, just sprinkle it over my salads. It's great for a raw soup, just throw it in the blender with some veggies. That's really nice. And so we're going to use it as a spice ingredient in our recipe today, but it also has lots of nutrition. So it really helps up the nutritional value of this dish that we're going to make. And that's one of the key tricks that I use in the way I eat and how I teach people to eat. So here's the Sunfire salt. This is a blend of 4 different salts: Himalayan salt, Hawaiian Alea clay salt, Bolivian rose salt, and Chinese sea salt. They come from different parts of the world. They all have different mineral complexes and nutritional profiles that have different vibrations. So it's a nice balance. It's a great way to get minerals into your diet, and salt is a nice flavor component, of course. There's also a key difference about the Himalayan salt in this product as opposed to some of the Himalayan salts that are on the market. A lot of them have nickel dust residue in them from the way they're processed on the machines that the salt rock is ground on, but this is processed on stainless steel, which is harder than the salt rock, so you don't get any metal residue in the salt, and it's also tested for heavy metals and other contaminants, so it does not get packaged and sent to the consumer unless it passed the test.
Wow.
So I love those. I use those regularly every day. I'm a firm believer in salt for most people. Some people say, no salt in the diet, but I think salt is very important. So that's my story.
I think the quality, it's all about quality.
Yeah, it really is.
Where it comes from and, its history, how it's processed, what's in it, rather than just dumping, the traditional what we know. So
yeah.
And we will have a link as well to the website and just kind of have details about how you can order these from Abby. Awesome. Could you not listen to her like all day? I could listen to you all day. I'm just like,
thank you.
Oh, Abby.
Wow.
So we're going to get started. And do you want to talk about the ingredients?
Yeah, just a quick, we'll move these over here for the moment. So we've got some sunflower seeds. These are organic and they've been soaked, and these have been dehydrated. You don't have to dehydrate them before you put them in the recipe. I often keep soaked dehydrated nuts in my fridge as a regular staple item, sort of like pantry products, and that way you don't have to think in advance, oh, I'm going to make this and I got to soak it the night before, or it's there for snacking, that kind of thing. And as you may or may not know, that soaking nuts and seeds is much easier on the digestion. It makes the nutrients much more bioavailable. So that's a whole other story, but it's really good to know that it's important to soak your nuts and seeds. So you can make this with unsoaked walnuts and sunflower seeds, but I prefer soaked. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with the sunflower seeds. And we just want to get them started in the processing. And I like to put the sunflower seeds in before the walnuts because they're a little harder. So my rule of thumb is to put the nuts in the order of hardness because of the processing time. You want the hardest nut to process the longest. since I'm in Andrea's kitchen, I'm not used to her food processor here, so.
It looks like you know what you're doing. So.
I do. I have a Cuisinart at home, but I've heard great things about KitchenAid, so
yeah,
this is nice. Okay, so now the walnuts, and I'm just going to do the same thing. The walnuts are pretty soft, so I don't want to process them too long because they're going to get processed more when the vegetables go in. That's good. So you want it just slightly chunky. And now we've got some celery. 1 rib of celery. We just cut it down to food processor size. And since the celery is harder than the pepper, the celery is going in first. Oops. See, on my food processor, the feeding tube goes on the other side. So you see, I can't have it. Okay, go for it. All right. So we've got 1 red bell pepper. It's been de-seeded and just chopped up just so it's a nice size for the food processor. Get this going. Put in our spices. So we have 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning, 2 tablespoons of Fiesta Molé, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic, a teaspoon of Sunfire salt, and about 1/4 teaspoon of onion. In this case we have onion flakes. I usually make it with onion powder, but either way is good. And this is a little on the spicy side. I like it spicy. If you would like to have it less spicy, you can put in less cayenne, less ginger. And we've got 2 tablespoons of lovely olive oil. What kind of olive oil is this, Andrea?
It's just organic from Italy, cold pressed.
Very nice. In a lovely little dish. And I'm just going to put in just a teeny bit of water, maybe a tablespoon. Now, if you use soaked nuts that you haven't dehydrated, if they're freshly soaked and they're moist, you don't need any water. But since these nuts have been dehydrated, nuts and seeds, I'm going to put in maybe a tablespoon, just a little bit. And you want to make sure the water is nice and clean, whatever your preferred method of filtration or distilling. And now I'm just going to turn it on and see what it does. Scrape down the sides just a little bit. And we're actually almost done already, so you see how fast this recipe is. I think we're good. Now you can, you can either, I think we're done with that. You can either make this as a paté, which is how it looks now. You can eat it just as is, or you can dehydrate it in little balls and make the meatballs. So we're going to start by putting a little bit, put a little bit on our lettuce here. Right? That's what you intended with this lovely lettuce here, right? So we can eat it this way.
And it's so pretty to look at too. It has a lot of vibrant color. Yeah. You know what I've also done sometimes in the past is I'll actually even make a double batch of a nut pate, and half of it I'll use it, you know, just like a regular pate over romaine or something like that. And the other half, I actually spread it on a dehydrator sheet and then dehydrate it probably overnight. And then I make like a crumbly salad topping. Like a lot of people who want croutons, which aren't the healthiest, are usually with white bread and, you know, processed oils and whatnot. if you just kind of make a spread of it on a dehydrator sheet and then flip it halfway, and then you just crackle it and keep it in a little ball container, and that serves as a really crunchy topping. People are used to bacon bits or croutons or something, but this is so flavorful, and it also, once you dehydrate it, has more concentrated flavor as well. And it's just beautiful. It keeps really well. It's a really great way to sustain a recipe you're already making. Just double it and dehydrate it, and then crumble it up over your salad. I love that.
Sounds good.
These are so cute.
So what you can do is you can roll them up by hand and make little balls, or if you have a little ice cream scoop or something like that, you can just make it much faster and easier to just scoop them out like this. And then if you do want full balls as opposed to half balls, which we have here, once they're mostly dehydrated, maybe halfway, you can just roll them up in your hands and do it that way. So there's various ways of doing it, but of course, if I can save a little time and still make it wonderful, then that's what I'll do. So that's why I like doing it with these scoops. And it sits on the plate really well this way. So then what we can do is we can put these in the dehydrator when they're done, when we've scooped them all out. And what I like to do for something like this is, if I'm around near the dehydrator and I have the opportunity to adjust the temperature, I will start them for the first 2, maybe 3 hours at 145. And you may say, oh, that's too hot, it's not raw anymore. But what happens is, because it's condensing, if you remember from elementary school science, condensation cools things. So it's like sweating. So what happens is the water starts to come out and it keeps the balls cool. So they're not actually heating to 145. The ambient air temperature may be 145, but the balls are still quite cool to the touch. So what that does is it speeds up the dehydrating time, and it makes it less possible that there may be some kind of bacteriological or fungal growth. So it's really nice to speed up the dehydrating time if you can. So then after that, I'll turn it down to 115 and then dry it. Maybe 6 hours total, 8 hours, something like that. What happens is, of course, because you're going to be making a big batch, and this is enough for maybe like 32, something like that, depending on the size of the balls, you're probably going to put them in the refrigerator unless you've got a party or a big family. You're probably not going to eat them all right away. So if you are going to store them, you want to make them extra dry, because what will happen is they'll get a little extra moist as they're sitting around in the refrigerator. And they'll keep for 5 days, maybe 7 days in the refrigerator. I haven't had them around long enough to know when they spoil. So I would say definitely 5 days, probably 7 days. If you're really concerned and you need to make them in advance, you could pop them in the freezer. Not as good, but it's still fine. So, and then you just slide in the dehydrator like this.
I find that I'm more of a savory person. You know how people sometimes, when 3 o'clock hits, they're looking for a muffin and a coffee or something like that. When 3 o'clock hits, I'm actually looking for something a little bit salty to munch on. So these are great in a wrap as a pate, dehydrated, also in a little crumble if you can make that. But just, at 3 o'clock, just kind of grab 3 and then, drink a glass of water, have some of this, or maybe not drink a glass of water either. These are just fine on their own. But that seems to be really something more savory, something more hearty like that really kind of hits the spot. When you need that energy to kind of go until, different times. So there's really no wrong way to do it. You can even make little skewers of cucumbers and tomatoes and meatballs and basil,
That's
so
nice.
kind of be creative.
Yeah. And we just, at home, we tend to have them, my husband and I, we'll have a salad and then throw a few meatballs on. My husband actually does like to cut them up smaller and kind of crumble them into the salad. He's a goulash kind of person. I like my food separate. I like both. Yeah. So and you can also make some raw spaghetti. You can either spiralize some squash or something like that. Yeah, and I have a nice Alfredo sauce on my side too that goes nicely with these.
Yeah. Yay, I'm getting hungry. Which is ironic because I'm on day 17 of this juice fast, which I can't wait to try these when my juice fast is over. But one side note about that is, you know, Abby's really been helping me with that. She, I believe,
I did a 50-day juice fast, completely green, nothing sweet. Yeah, my husband did 40 days. We were doing it together. He was done after 40 days.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
He was more than done. I was still going strong. I was going to work, and I was like, okay, it's time to stop the fast.
That's so funny. But when you get past a certain point too, like if you get past day 7 or day 6, it's like this is just what I do now. I just make juice, and you know, I'm still making other stuff for my family, and it's not very tempting because my body is just kind of acclimated to it. So, but really just
interestingly enough, excuse me, but it's just funny. The first time I taught these meatballs, I was also fasting.
There's like synchronicity.
Yeah,
that's so
it's
funny.
pretty fun.
Well, just by the scent alone, it's amazing. It's even like a little basil. I could see them on a little basil.
Nice.
So make these. Definitely make these. We'll have the recipe below. And her site again is supersimplessuperfoods.com.